Hello and welcome to the 75th review posted to the channel. To be honest, I can't believe that we've already done that many and we're only 25 away from 100 reviews, which feels like quite a significant milestone. So to celebrate, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different by taking a look at the Tomb Raider DVD game. Yeah, Tomb Raider had a DVD game. I didn't even know this was a thing until I went into a shop and saw it there for 50p, so I figured I might as well pick it up and see what it's all about. So picture this, the year is 2006. You've played and enjoyed all of the PS1 era Tomb Raider games and you're itching for more Lara Croft action. The problem is that you don't have a PS2 or any other games consoles, so what do? Well, luckily for you, this happens to be when Tomb Raider the Action-Adventure DVD game was released, meaning that you're no longer bound to a games console to experience a riveting Tomb Raider story. All you need is a standard DVD player, and you're good to go. The back of the box describes the game as having wonderful film-like graphics and an exciting plot, so I've got my hopes up for this. Wait, what's this? The game is based on Angel of Darkness. Maybe I shouldn't get my hopes up after all then. I like how the back of the box also says Lara Croft is wrongfully accused of murder. I mean, maybe in this specific situation she could be wrongfully accused. But what about all of those times in the previous games where she's been mowing people down like there's no tomorrow? Even in this very game I hold in my hands, she's murdering innocent people left, right and centre, like literally shooting museum security guards who probably have families back at home. I also like how the box says, but she is tough and clever as well as gorgeous, as if that last thing helps you out when you're being accused of murder. It's such an unnecessary detail. When we finally stop over-analysing the box, we can start playing the game, and just like pretty much every DVD game, it starts with a quick tutorial explaining the controls. Obviously you have a very limited amount of interactivity here, but it showcases some of the stuff we'll be able to do in a very easy to understand way, making this game accessible for people who don't normally play video games. Elements of the DVD's presentation are actually quite good. The gameplay footage taken from Angel of Darkness looks pretty high quality. They seem to have used some high quality renders of Lara which are spliced into the cutscenes quite well, and there's a decent amount of effort put into the transition effects to make the gameplay montages more exciting. I especially liked this one example where we transition from one section of gameplay to another by having Lara running across the screen. I would have loved to have seen more goofy stuff like this, but I also kind of appreciate how this only happens one single time.
I made it!
But then we also have some examples of the presentation here being pretty awful, particularly with the font choices used for the menu interface. Still, I can't be too mad considering that everything outside of the menus is actually pretty good. I mean, it can be quite jarring going from the high quality renders of Lara to the lower quality cutscenes and then to the gameplay, but I suppose there's not a lot that could have been done about that inconsistency, so I'll let that slide. As you can probably tell, the DVD game is literally a straight up retelling of Angel of Darkness, not only following the same plot but also using cutscenes and gameplay from it too. If you've played Angel of Darkness, you already know what to expect here, so you probably won't get much out of this. It's a real shame that the DVD game doesn't feature a fully original story, but obviously that would have required a lot more work, with the developers needing to create loads of new assets as well as develop an original story, and for a DVD game, it really wouldn't have been worth it. Because the game recycles all of its content from Angel of Darkness, we've got some really entertainingly clunky scenes here, which did manage to get a chuckle out of me. So let's take a look at some of the best scenes in the entire game, starting with this really clunky and robotic exchange of dialogue, which just feels so incredibly stiff, it's unbelievable.
Come in.
Thank you.
An evil night to be out alone, Miss Croft. Our streets are not safe anymore.
Mademoiselle Carvier, I have just come from Werner's apartment.
And how is Werner?
I'm afraid Werner is dead.
What happened?
It's all a bit vague.
And then there's this shot of this guy just rising up from nowhere, as if he's a balloon being inflated or something.
What happened to your man in the room out there, Bouchard?
To Arno? You've got something to say about that?
And then I also loved this scene too, where Lara meets a guard outside of a nightclub, only for him to greet her with the most nonsensical sentence I think I've ever heard.
Hi, I want to see Bouchard.
Nothing doing.
Hello, I'm here today to talk to you about the Tomb Raider DVD game. Nothing doing. As much as I do love the sections like this that are laughably bad, these scenes are few and far between, so I can't really recommend that you play it for the entertainment value. So what about the actual gameplay? Could I recommend it for that? Well, I use the term gameplay very lightly because, as you would expect, there isn't too much game in this DVD game. The core interactivity you'll have here come in a variety of categories. There's these button mashing sections, which is pretty self-explanatory. You just mash a button as quick as you can to hold your grip on a rope or something. There's quick time events where you need to correctly press buttons displayed on the screen as quickly as possible, which makes you successfully do some kind of fancy acrobatics. There's pattern memorization, which is very similar to the quick time events, only the buttons you need to press will be displayed for a short time before disappearing, forcing you to remember what the combination was. And there's also a couple of these timed sequences where you need to press a button at a certain time to avoid a specific obstacle, like a laser motion sensor or something. The more impressive elements of the game come in the form of the aspects that more closely resemble the actual games. So you know how the Tomb Raider games always have a heavy emphasis on puzzle solving through exploration and finding key items? The DVD game actually does try to replicate this. There's sections where you'll make choices about which direction to go, and you might find a particular item by exploring thoroughly, which will help you later on. One of the best examples of the game pulling this off pretty well is this section where you walk into a surveillance room and you can access 3 cameras which are placed in different locations. By using the cameras you can find a key code written on a computer screen and then use that code to gain entry to a new area and progress the story. This is potentially the only area in the entire game that actually felt like a proper video game, but it was pretty well executed considering the limitations. Another way this game replicates the main games is that you actually have an item inventory, and you can sometimes access it in order to use keys and that sort of thing, which is a nice touch. Why does she have to say the name of literally everything that she picks up though?
A crowbar. Ah, the box. A gun.
A phone. A fork. A pen. A cat. Of course, another big element of the actual games is the shooting, which again this DVD does attempt to include by having these shooting gallery sections where you need to quickly move a cursor around on the screen to line up your shot and then press the enter button to shoot. It's obviously extremely primitive, but it gets the job done. What made me laugh about this though is that later in the game there's a boss battle, but because the DVD can't really do much to replicate the boss from the actual game, it just goes down in a single shot. You get this massive build-up, and then it's just over in a second. It looks ridiculous.
That wasn't so hard.
The final gameplay style is that sometimes you'll have access to dialogue options, but the issue with this is that no matter what you say, it has no effect on anything. The story is going to progress in the exact same way, regardless of what you do. So what ends up happening is that if you pick the wrong choice, you either end up failing and just having to repeat the last dialogue exchange, or sometimes you'll just straight up get shot in the face and enter a game over screen.
Don't joke me around, Bouchard. I lost that friend yesterday.
You better watch your mouth, lady.
I'll watch nothing. I'm sick of your Parisian lowlife ways. I need results.
Careful, Vixen. You don't need things to get any worse.
And how will that happen? You'll set these pussycats on me, right?
Wrong. I'll take care of this myself. Welcome to Fatality.
I mean, obviously they couldn't have gone really in depth with this because it's based on an already existing game which was very linear, but that just makes it all the more upsetting that it wasn't an original story featured in the DVD game. That way they could have just have gone wild and done their own thing with it, making some of these mechanics a lot more fleshed out and worthwhile. We also have a team play mode, where the theory is that I guess a group of people could play the game and take it in turns to see who can do the best throughout the adventure and rack up the most points. Yes! Nice one, Team 1! We got 5 out of 5 on that one! High five! Oh. That's right, I'm on my own. Now, the question I'm ultimately left with at the end of my experience with this game, I guess, is who exactly is this aimed at? Fans of Tomb Raider will have already played Angel of Darkness when it came out, 3 years before this DVD game, might I add. So they have no reason to go through this because it's literally the exact same story with cutscenes and gameplay taken from the proper game. Not only that, but this DVD game came out in 2006, the same year as the next proper mainline Tomb Raider game, Tomb Raider Legend. So if you were a fan back then, this DVD would be the last thing on your mind. So maybe this was intended for fans of Tomb Raider that weren't interested in video games. After all, the 2001 Tomb Raider film had kind of introduced the character to more than just gamers. But for those people, you already had an upcoming animated series, a comic book series, several novels, and of course, the sequel to the original 2001 film with Cradle of Life. So yeah, I think the non-gaming fans of Tomb Raider were already covered. There's no wonder this DVD exists in a void of obscurity. It has literally no audience. Only an absolute sucker would have purchased this. Wait a minute. Oh yeah. So maybe then it's just aimed at fans of DVD games. You know, all of those legions of DVD game fanatics you hear about all the time. But even for them, aren't DVD games supposed to be short party game experiences? This is like a 2-hour-long narrative-driven experience, and it's not ideal for a party situation at all. I literally do not know who the audience was supposed to be for this. The thing is, for as awful and weird of an experience this was, I do have to admit, as someone who has never played Angel of Darkness before, the DVD game did actually make it look quite good. The gameplay montages made me want to try the game out, and it looked far more entertaining than just having to sit there and have no control over any of it. So I guess at the very least, it works as a good advert. And that's Tomb Raider the Action Adventure. Which, by the way, is a very stupid name. It would be like calling a new Silent Hill the Horror, or a new Mario game, Super Mario the Platformer. I really don't recommend you play this. It's way too long, it's based on an actual video game, so you might as well just play that instead. And if you aren't a fan of video games and yet still like Tomb Raider, just go and watch the films, or even just watch all of the cutscenes for the games on YouTube. Anything is better than this. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to see more stuff like this coming soon, and leave a comment down below letting me know if you've even ever heard of this. I know I hadn't until I saw it on the store shelf. And, until the next video, bye!